during my stay on the island. His house, like all the Mataora houses, was worth a bit of study. Pandanus logs, 5 or 6 inches in diameter, and set 4 feet apart, made the uprights. On each side of these logs, and extending from top to bottom, a groove was cut. Thin laths, split from the aerial roots of the pandanus, were set horizontally into the grooves, making a wall which permitted the free circulation of air. At the windward end of the house a large shutter of the same material was hung on hinges of bark. On warm days it could be opened to admit the breeze. The plates and rafters were made of the trunks of old coconut palms, a beautiful hardwood which blackens with age and can be polished like mahogany. The roof was thatched with cacao, strips of wood over which were doubled selected leaves of pandanus 6 feet long and 4 inches across. The cacao are laid like shingles, so deeply overlapped that only 6 inches of each is exposed, and the result is a cool and perfectly watertight roof, which lasts for years. The floor of Terry's house was of fine white gravel, covered with mats. A bed of mats, a few odds and ends of fishing gear, and a Bible in the Rarotongan language made up the furniture. The old man had been a pearl diver for many years. He knew all the lagoons of this part of the Pacific, and could give the history of every large pearl discovered in these waters. 20 fathoms he considered an ordinary depth for the naked divers, 25 the limit. One day he went too deep, and since then he has been a cripple with paralyzed leg, dependent for care on the kindly people of his island. He busied himself in carving out models of the ancient Polynesian sailing canoes, beautifully shaped and polished, inlaid with shell, and provided with sails of mother of pearl. Now and then he presented a canoe to the captain of a trading schooner visiting the island, and received in return a bag of flour or a few sticks of tobacco. I had some interesting yarns with Terry. I speak Rarotongan, and Mataora language is a good deal the same. They have 3 extra consonants, by the way, the F, L, and H. What a puzzle these island dialects are. Terry told me a lot about pearl fishing. The people had divided their lagoon into 3 sections, one of which was fished each year. In this way each section got a 2 years' rest. The shell is the object of the diving. Pearls are a secondary issue. The divers are not much afraid of sharks, but dread the tonu and the big conger eel. Some years before, when Terry was resting in a boat after a spell under water, one of his companions failed to return to the surface. Looking through his water-glass, he saw a great tonu lying on the bottom 60 feet beneath him, the legs of his comrade hanging from its jaws. Fancy the ugly brute, 10 feet long and all head, like an overgrown rock-cod, with a man in his mouth. Terry and several others seized their spears and went over the side next moment. They killed a tonu, but too late to save the life of their companion. Conger eels grow to enormous size in the pearl lagoons, and the divers keep a close watch for them. They lie in holes and crevices of the coral and dart out their heads to seize a passing fish, or the waist of a diver, stooping and intent on his task. When the conger's jaws close on wrist or ankle, the diver needs a cool head. No amount of struggling will pull the eel from his hole. One must wait quietly, Terry told me, until the conger relaxes his jaws, preparatory to taking a better grip. Then a quick wrench, and one is free. On an atoll like Mataora, where the food supply is limited to fish and coconuts, with a chicken or a piece of pork as an occasional treat, fishing plays a large part in the life of the people. The men were all expert fishermen, and used a variety of ingenious methods to catch the different kinds of fish. Terry, of course, was no longer able to go out, but a friend of his, an old fellow named Mataora, used to take me with him. He was a fine specimen, 6 feet tall, muscular, and active as a boy, with clear eyes and thick gray hair. One day he proposed trying for copperoo, a small variety of mackerel. The settlement is on the lee side of the island, where a coral shoal runs out half a mile to sea, covered with 20 to 40 fathoms of water. It was early in the morning, a dead calm, when we launched the big canoe and slipped out through the surf. About a quarter of a mile offshore, Mataora asked me to hold the canoe stationary while he went about his fishing. Fastening a 20-foot rope to the thwart, he made a noose at the other end and passed it under his arms. Then he took a ripe coconut, split it, and gouged out the meat with his knife. With the white pulp in one hand, he slipped overboard and swam down as far as the rope would let him. Through my water-glass I watched him put pieces of coconut into his mouth and blow out clouds of the finely chewed stuff, which drifted and eddied about him in the gentle current. He seemed to stay under indefinitely. The lungs of a pearl diver are wonderful things. Now and then he came to the surface for a fresh supply of chum, and finally, at first in twos and threes, and then in shoals, the koperu began to appear from the depths. Little by little he enticed them close to the surface, until they swam all about him fearlessly, gobbling the morsels of coconut. At last the old man reached up for his fishing tackle, an 18-inch twig with a bit of doubled sewing cotton and a tiny barbless hook. He baited the hook with a particle of coconut and dangled it under the nose of the nearest koperu, while he hung on the shortened rope just beneath the surface. His right arm broke water in a series of jerks, and each time it rose a fish tumbled into the canoe, until they lay in the bottom by dozens. Though the people of Mataora made sport of their work, they had plenty of leisure for other things. In the evening, when the tasks of the day had been completed by lighting the lamps in the roofed-over sleeping places of the dead, the young people loved to gather for a session of akautu talanga, story-telling. They met in some one's house, or brought mats to spread in the bright moonlight outside, and while the others lay about intent on the tale, one after another reflected the adventures of some Polynesian hero or the loves of some legendary island princess, strange fragments from the old days, full of specters and devils and monstrous heathen gods. There was a girl named Porima who told her stories marvelously well, a tall youngster of 17, with a dash of off-island blood, Hawaiian, I think. She was an artist in her way. One could imagine in her the pioneer of a literature to come. Her broad forehead, the masses of black hair, which from time to time, with an impatient gesture, she shook back over her shoulders, and the slumberous eyes, with a suggestion of hypnotic power, made her a person not easily forgotten. Although she had told them many times, Primora's stories never failed to hold her audience. The whispering ceased when she began, and every head turned towards where she sat, her hands continually in motion, her voice rising in excitement or dying away to a murmur, while the listeners held their breath. As the hours passed, both audience and performers used to grow weary and drop off to sleep, one by one. Finally a rooster crowed, and one awoke with a start to realize that it was day. One evening at a story-telling I heard a shout from the beach and remembered that I had been invited to go after flying fish. A dozen canoes were putting out through the surf, each manned by 4 paddlers. I made a fourth in the last canoe. We shot out of the opening with a receding wave, paddled desperately through the surf, and a moment later were rocking gently beyond the breakers. The canoes were formed into a rough line. Each stern man lit a torch of coconut leaves bound with bark, and a man forward took his place standing, net in hand. The net is like a shallow landing net, set on a haft of stiff bamboo, and can be handled only after years of unconscious training. My position, paddling amidships, enabled me to watch how the net was managed. One doesn't often see such an exhibition of dexterity and strength. The art consists in clapping the net over the fish just at the moment when he is lying at the surface, hesitating before taking flight. At any instant the netter may see a fish to port, to starboard, or directly ahead. Our man swung his net continually, and each time it passed over the canoe he flipped it upside down to drop a fish. Think of the muscles needed for this sort of thing, the quickness of eye and hand, where a delicate balance must be maintained, and one is constantly alert to guard one's face against the fish, which whiz past at all angles. Then remember that it is a pretty serious matter to capsize